certainly not a position I would expect to be in. But from the moment I accepted the reality that Michael was no longer with us, that I would be able to tell you some of what he meant to me. So I'm going to try to do that. I've spent many hours thinking about what I wanted to say, and I realized just recently that the problem was I was trying to make this make sense. And it doesn't make sense. And I think if Michael was to give me some of his wisdom which he had in me, he would say, it doesn't make sense. Stop trying to make it make sense. Just go through it. God created Michael as a very special, beautiful person. He took a part of me, he took a part of his mother, and put them together and made something better and greater than either one of us. And today, in some sense, we return Michael to God. Appreciate his life, but so much missing him. When I lost Michael, I lost so much. He was not only my son, he was my mentor, my helper, my friend. One of my friends wrote to me the day after his death, said, "You've lost the most precious earthly friend of your life. Michael was your soulmate, your mental DNA. You two clicked. He understood you like nobody else." And I've learned since then that he understood many people that well. It wasn't just me. I've had emails from his friends as we've talked about the family. He was special to everyone. He was completely accepting and supportive while still keeping me honest. His keeping me honest often took the form of teasing. One of his favorite phrases to use to me was, "How's that working out for you?" Which meant it again caught me being dysfunctional and not doing things quite the way I should, and just giving me a little bit. In actual fact, the teasing between us went both ways, and often stretched on into when he and I were alone, into trading one insult after another, all made up on the fly, all building on the last one. Impossible to reproduce for you, but I think maybe you can imagine it. And often, when we were in the middle of insulting and putting each other down, Michael would pause for a moment and look at me, and he would say, if people didn't know us, they would think we really didn't like each other. But we both knew with complete confidence that we had each other's back. We completely supported each other. And so nothing we ever said was taken negatively. Michael was, I would say, the smartest, most intelligent person I have ever interacted with. He was, I'm not exactly stupid, but he was way smarter than me. He really was. And it just amazed me to watch how quickly he would catch on to things. And I've noticed, looking back over his life, a very interesting pattern, because so many times in life I would introduce him to something, and within days or weeks or months, He had exceeded my ability, whatever it was. I had just taught him how to do. As I tell you a few stories, watch for that pattern. You'll see it. He always cared about me and what I was interested in. He was always supportive and helpful, except when he saw me going down the wrong track, and he didn't hesitate to point that out to me. He was also excellent at helping me to see things from the other person's point of view. You know, if I was ever in conflict with anybody, Michael was one of the first people I wanted to talk to, because he would listen to what I said, and he would understand what I said, and he would help me see it from the other side and help me figure out what a win-win solution would be. He just amazed me that he could do that. And that's one of the reasons why we say he's so wise in his years, because I've known many people my age and older that can't do that. But he could. And it wasn't just a one-way solution. He would ask me for advice sometimes, too. And we spent many happy hours on the phone or in person discussing the goals and strategies that we had in life and the things that we wanted to do. Of course, since it was Michael, sometimes the goals would wander off into, something completely esoteric or nonsensical or however that worked. But until one of us finally pulled it back to reality. But we quite easily operated in unreality just as well. I think one of the most important things about him, I've said he was very smart, and a lot of smart people are, as we said in his life story, like Sheldon. They don't relate well to people. But Michael was also one of the best I know of at relating to people. He was more empathetic than anybody I know. He understood people, he understood things from their point of view. I think one of the first times I remember noticing his skill with people was when he got his first car. And being interested in technology and gadgets and being somewhat of an audiophile, he wanted to upgrade the stereo in his car. So he, of course, did a lot of research, and as he always did, he knew about everything. And then we went out shopping to the stores. And, I still thought of him as my little kid. So we walked into the store, and the next thing I know is he was in an animated discussion with the salesman, talking about the pros and cons of this and that, and the options here and there, negotiating package deals, and I'm standing back looking and saying, wow, when did he grow up? Let me tell you a few more stories about him, if you don't mind. I want to talk a little bit more about the laser project that we talked about in the life story. That was a project that actually I worked on for about 10 years. It was my major work accomplishment. And then I moved on to another job, and then later we needed somebody to help out with that. So Michael started working on that. I think that was in 2008. I shouldn't try to do math. He was younger than he is now. He was 20-something. I can't do math while I'm talking in front. This is a very, I'm not going to try to explain to you what software engineering is or how important the project was, but it was a very important project. It involved a great attention to detail, understanding how the whole system works. And it was a complicated system. It's basically writing a computer program. At that time, the computer program that ran the laser was about 300 pages of code. And that was the time he could go over. So he worked on it, and he immediately took over and understood what he was doing, and he learned from me, and he asked questions and helped out. And he just started producing really good quality work, and within a few months he was producing better quality work than I did. So He knew some things that I didn't know. He knew things about feedback and control theory, which is what engineering is all about. That's how systems operate. That probably doesn't mean anything to most of you, but that's okay. It doesn't mean very much to me either. So, but he used to explain those kind of things to me. He knew how to control things so that they would do exactly what they were supposed to do. One of the things that you'll find on the table out there is a notebook which contains the design document for that project that he was doing. And the particular copy that's out there was the only copy I could find. The copy that has Larry comments and his comments. So it was like the next final copy of it. That's what's out there. And that was part of what he did during that time, was to write that whole document. He solved some very difficult problems. I remember one of the last difficult problems he solved was probably around a year ago. I remember he and I had many discussions about it. There was a problem with timing in the project. And he was working and trying one approach after another to solve the timing problem. He really got quite involved with it, quite discouraged about it. And I wasn't very much help because he was really operating at a level that was above my head. So I was not even helping much. But eventually, he got it solved. And I remember hearing the joy in his voice as he got it figured out. And as he explained to me how he had done it, it was incredibly ingenious, I thought, that he had done a great deal of analysis and done it. So I was extremely proud of him for that work. I think that was probably his greatest accomplishment. Talking about a few other things. We're going to be showing you some pictures in a little while. I'll give you a little background to that. I said he learned to ride a unicycle. He learned that from me too. I think probably within about 2 weeks he was riding better than me. In unicycles, there is a set of skill levels from 1 through 10. And I could, at that time, I haven't ridden one for a little while, but at that time I could ride about skill level 1 or 2, maybe, on a good day, I could reach 2. Michael, at the peak of his performance, had completed up through level 7 and was working on tricks from 8, 9, and 10. And what these are is, you know what a unicycle is. You'll see a few pictures of him riding around on one wheel. But the tricks are things like riding with 1 foot, riding with no feet, but your feet on the wheel, riding with only 1 foot on the wheel, riding with no feet on anything. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, riding backwards, forwards, around in circles, standing still. There's just a whole list of tricks for each one. So that's what he accomplished in a little while. Another accomplishment I'd like to tell you, and I can't actually remember the right name for this. I think there's some engineering students here, so I'll probably say something wrong because I'm not an engineer. But there's a problem, which the name is coming to me as a twin pendulum problem. This is for feedback and control. The idea here is you want to be able to control something precisely. You don't want your car, for example, when you to go off out of control. It's very important that it be controlled properly by the electronics. Well, the way this particular problem works is there's a bar here, and there are 2 sticks standing up on it with joints so they can move. And one is long, and one is shorter. And what you have to do is move it in such a way back and forth so that they both will stay balanced. That's not too hard to do with 1 stick. I mean, hard for me, but think about that. You can balance 1 stick with 2 at different heights because they react completely differently. So it's an extremely difficult problem. It also depends on a lot of other variables, like every year they redesign the equipment and then it reacts differently, so you can't take the solutions from last year. But this is a standard student problem that the students do. So Michael was in the class where they had to do this project, and nobody was getting it done. Nobody could make it work, not even the teacher. So Michael, at some point, and I wish I could tell you how, but it probably wouldn't mean anything to you anyway unless you're an engineer. And the engineers would know didn't know what I was talking about. But he took a different approach to the problem. He went through some very complex mathematical analysis, and he solved it. He was the only one who did that. Music was very important. Some things you'll see here. You can see a couple of his guitars. Guitar was something I introduced him to as well, but he exceeded me immediately. This was his first guitar here that he picked out. He learned to play quite passable classical guitar. Later went on got an electric guitar. Let's see, he got a couple of them actually, but that was his favorite one, his last one. Another thing that you'll notice on the display out there, there's a board about this big. It's got a bunch of little boxes on it with knobs on them. Those go with the electric guitar. That's his actual board. And those are used to modify and change the sound of an electric guitar. Of course, he loved that because he loved technology as well as music. But music was very important to him. He and I used to play together. As I said, he was better than me. Not only that, our playing style was very different. And we emphasized different things. He figured it out just recently. Actually, it was just a few weeks ago when he and I were playing together. He says, I figured out differences. He says, you're always exactly on with the note, and I'm always exactly on with the rhythm. I think he was probably right, but it made it quite a challenge for us to play together. And when we did play together, it was just the two of us. We never did this in public. But we would often end up fairly soon launching off into what you might call improvisational comedy, basically making fun of each other. But they were very, very special times that I enjoyed. Another computer project he told me about had to do with how he met his roommate, Brandon. They were taking assembly language programming class, and he talked to me about this because being a programmer, I didn't understand it. But the teacher gave them their final project, I guess, and then said something like, anybody that gets it done in one day will have get an A in the class. I think it was something like that. I should probably have Brandon tell you the story, but what I remember is the two of them decided we're going to do it. That was the first time I think they did a project together. And they went to work right after class. They spent about 8 hours designing what they were going to do, about 2 hours writing, 1 hour testing, and it was done. And that was a very important thing that Michael learned there and many other places. When you're on a deadline, when you've got important things to do, a lot of things to do, you start by designing and making a list. He always used to teach me that. Michael and I have spent a bit of time over the past few months. He's been here mostly since January. We did a lot of projects together. He helped me a lot. I gave a creativity presentation recently. He helped me a lot doing that. He even introduced me, which was very nice. It started out typically what I expect, and then he actually said some very nice things about me, which was nice. We've got Leslie speaker from an old organ and got that working. He was a guitar speaker. Another thing we did one day, we went out and raked leaves. That doesn't sound terribly important, does it? It's important to me. We had never really lived where leaves needed to be raked. We used to live out in the country and we just let the leaves lie. We don't have to rake them, nobody's looking. But at my house, we decided we should rake the leaves. So we went out there. And of course, Michael hadn't really able to rake the leaves much before, but he immediately started showing his perfection by getting every leaf. And he talked several times after that about the importance of the naturalness of physical labor. You know, that's really what people are designed to do, not sitting behind a desk and sitting in front of a computer screen. We're really designed to be out there working, and he believed in that. He believed art was very important. One of the most important parts of art was in learning to actually see. And he and I used to talk about this, you know, and it's an important mental exercise. You love mental exercises. And it's what you learn if you learn to draw, for example. You have to learn, you know, you look at something here and you say, okay, that's a guitar. And then you go off and you draw what you think a guitar is. But that's not what you see. Until you experience that kind of a breakthrough, learning to just look at something and see exactly what's there, you're missing a part of your mental ability, since that was something that was very important to him to do that. It's also important to him, and I think related, to see reality and truth. Another thing you're going to see on the slideshow is some pictures of him and his motorcycle, and you'll see some of his motorcycle gear out there. So I'm going to give you just a little background on that. He one day said he wanted to buy a motorcycle. And so we started researching that. We looked at all the different brands and decided that he wanted a BMW motorcycle. And eventually bought one. We went up to the BMW dealer up in Fife. He and I were looking at motorcycles. He had his eye on a motorcycle. This is a story that's a little bit embarrassing. I'm not sure I should tell you, but I'm going to. So he and I were going to test drive motorcycles, because I was interested in motorcycles at the time too. And so he got on the one he was interested in, and I got on the one I was interested in, and we started riding around the parking lot. And then we were going to head out and go down the road for a bit. Before this, by the way, we had taken a motorcycle class together and gotten our license, so we were legal and safe. And unfortunately, the motorcycle I was on, just as I was heading out on the road, stalled. Now, that may or may not have been operator error, I really honestly can't tell you. But it stalled, and then it fell back. Which is very embarrassing when you're doing your own motorcycle. Well, that was a little bit shocking, and I kind of took it back and discontinued my test drive and decided not to buy that motorcycle right then. But Michael did go ahead and did buy his motorcycle, and then he had to ride it all the way home. We got it, I don't know, just as they were closing, we finally finished the paperwork, and then we had to head home. He just barely had his license, and you know, he was legal to ride on the freeway, but he'd never been riding on the freeway, so we decided to take a different route from Fife. So we took the back road route. It was hours before we finally got home. And he got there safely. But then I think one of the nicest things that really shows Michael's character is the next day he says, "Dad, we're riding on a motorcycle." Even though he had just seen me ride with him, he was willing to share it with me. He wanted me to be involved, and he just so appreciated that. He took a lot of motorcycle trips. He did a lot of camping on his motorcycle trips. Here in a few minutes we're going to show you, you'll see some pictures of his motorcycle and his campsites. He used to go to several places he really liked. Arches was a special place. You'll see some pictures of Delicate Arch. Those were pictures that he took on his motorcycle trip. He mostly traveled alone. You'll also see a picture of him on top of Angel's Landing, which was a very special place to he and I. Although the only time he and I were there together was when he was about 9 or 10. You'll also see a picture of him at Four Corners. He always wanted to do one of the things that extreme motorcyclists do 1,000-mile day. I think he told me that he had done like 950 miles in one day. He never done 1,000. He rode all the way back to rode back here. He'd been on a couple of trips. But the most important thing that I want you to know is who Michael Whitney was to me. Those are all good things about him. One of the times when he and I became especially close was when he was in the hospital. We told you about his hospitalization. He was hospitalized for several multiple times for many times. But there was one particular time when he was in there because he needed special care, but not a whole lot was actually going on. And he was in there, I think, for, my memory is about a month. And I spent every night with him and most every day with him. Just he and I were there together. And we didn't watch TV or anything like that. He wasn't into that. We would just talk. We talked and we talked about everything. We talked about spiritual things and religious things and philosophy things. We just spent so much time talking. And that was a very important part of my relationship with him. I told you how he understood me and how he teased me. He loved to play with words. I'm sure I have something like this for myself. This particular one happens to be from one of his friends. An email that Michael sent to one of his friends. And it's just a couple of sentences here. Of course, the past couple of years of my life contain many entertaining events entirely expected to be expertly expounded and esoterically expanded into epic expositions of exceptional eccentricity and exponentially expanding excitement. Sometimes my alliteration gets carried away. I think what I meant was I have started to and plan to continue writing some of them down. He did love writing. Another quote, again, from an email he sent to one of his friends. So there I was, armed only with my wits, a shovel, and a selection of toaster pastries, once again facing my nemesis of old. He helped me in so many ways. He helped me technically. I would discuss technical problems with him. He would help me with people, with managing my department, with understanding people. He knew almost everything. I did my best to guide him. He did his best to guide me. He was an inspiration to me. He helped me in so many ways. He was my best friend. And I think one of the most important things is that he loved me unconditionally, and I loved him the same way. Just a few weeks ago, when it was time for him to go to bed, I realized he was very upset. I didn't really know about what. I still don't know completely anymore now, but all I knew is he was upset. And so I stayed talking to him. We talked back and forth until 2 or 3 a.m. And eventually, I actually A day or so later, he wrote me a note that he just left for me around the house. And he said, I'm sorry, and I appreciate your support. And he signed off with, I will be okay someday. I believe him. I believe that someday, somehow, God will set things right. And in a beautiful place, where there's no more pain or sorrow or crying.